Hi, I'm George Pearson, and I'm going to show you how to use the new Photoshop Elements 2020 pattern brush, but also how you can take this idea a whole lot further even if you don't have Photoshop Elements 2020. Now, if you like this video, make sure you hit that like button and, of course, hit share. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to learn a lot more about how to use Photoshop Elements, including the new Photoshop Elements 2020, take a look at my complete training courses. There's a link right down there in the description. There's a separate link for 2020 and also another link for all of the other versions as well. I have one training title per version, and it is the best way to learn how to use Photoshop Elements. Okay, let's get to it. Let's first do a real fast Photoshop Elements 2020 pattern brush demonstration here. And I also want to show you exactly what it is that this thing is doing. First off, I have a picture selected right down there. And let's go up here. Here's the new pattern brush. Click on that. And as you can see, we're in the guided edits section right there. It's going to go through and find the subject for you. You don't have to have it mask the subject. You can use that right over here. I'll show you that in just a second. First off, it has a bunch of patterns down here. There they are. Not that many. There's 9, 12, 15 patterns in total. So not that many. But they're okay. Here's the hearts. And here's your protect subject. I'm going to uncheck that first. And I'll take these hearts, just kind of drag these across the subject like that. The protect subject simply does that. It keeps those from showing up on the subject. That's all that does. So you can have it either on the subject or off. That's up to you. We'll do it off. A couple of options down here. You can either fill a whole picture with your pattern. Just click on fill. Fills the whole thing like that. Or you can just use the paintbrush. You can even do both. Do fill first and then come back in and add some more in with the paintbrush. You of course can adjust the size in here as well, as you can see there. And the scattering amount and the opacity. So a few little options. If there are any hearts where you don't want them, in this case any part of these patterns, you can erase those with the pattern eraser. You can also blur out the background, right there, little background blur as well. So a few basic options in here. Let's now see exactly how this thing is working. I'm going to just cancel this. Let's bring it back in again. There we are. And let's go ahead and I'll protect subject. That's fine. Grab our heart. I'm going to go for a real large size here. That's a pretty good size. Put scatter at the bottom. I'm just going to fill this whole thing in solid. So what I want you to see is that there's a pattern in the background there. And that's what gives the hearts their varying colors, is that there's this patterning in behind. Okay, that's how this works. And it's kind of fun. You can do some fun stuff with this. I think it's a real fun, cute tool. The problems I have with this is you can't change that pattern in the background, the coloration. You can't change from outside of these different patterns as well. You're kind of limited on your patterns. So with those two problems, let's see how we can get around this. Let's just cancel this one out. And let's switch over here to expert mode. And here's the same picture. Now the first part of this is how do you get that protection done? And that's pretty easy. You just make a layer mask on this. So I'll just grab any tool. And this one doesn't need to be super perfect, because we're just doing kind of a background thing in here. So I'll just pull this around like this. And we'll go up to this side and around in here. There we go. And just come back around to your beginning. And it gives you a nice little selection. You can clean that up with the Refine Edge tool. And let's set this at Overlay. And I'll increase the size of my brush a little bit as well. That's better. And then just brush over the edges like that. And then Photoshop Elements goes in, finds the actual edge, and it will make a mask for that. And that's what's going to be protecting the subject, is that mask. Again, this step here doesn't have to be very carefully done if this is all you're doing is this kind of a patterning thing. It's really not that critical. Once that's done, let's output this to a new layer with layer mask. Choose OK. There's our new layer. There's the layer mask. If we now show the background layer, there we go. So we're all set. The subject is in front. Let's come down to our background layer right here. Let's make a new layer in behind. Now if I go over here, I'm just going to grab any old color. Let's grab a red, kind of reddish color in there. And let's grab just a pretty good sized paintbrush. There we go. I'm just going to paint straight across like that. And notice how the layer mask here now is protecting the subject. So that part of this is done and that part of this works. Let's just undo that paintbrush. If I come down to the background layer, I'm going to make a copy of this because I want to make some changes. Let's go ahead and just do duplicate layer, choose OK, hide the original. Now on this layer here, if we go up to filter, come down to blur and Gaussian blur right there, we can now blur the background. So we have that part of this in there as well. So we can blur our background, we can protect the image. All that is pretty easy to do. I'm not going to bother with that though for this demonstration. In any case, so we have our two parts. Blur background works if you want it, and we have our subject up here. Now, we need that kind of a pattern color in the background. I'll go over here to the photo bin and I have one right here. Just kind of a nice, interesting picture. Kind of looks like a rose. It's a bit of just graphic artwork, but it looks like a rose. I'll just float this out here and drag that in like that and put it in behind our foreground layer. And let's just get this so it fits properly. And I'll stretch it a little bit right there. There we go. That's pretty good. Okay, so I have our coloration as well. And that's just sitting there. I'll want to have this up above this clear layer. Okay, everything is in place. Now I'll hide this. Let's come down to this layer. Now what we need are the heart shapes. And there isn't a heart paintbrush. If you go up here to paintbrush, if you take a look in your paintbrush down here, this is the default brushes. Go down to the very bottom, you'll find a few things. Here's a leaf, different kind of leaf. Here's a star shape, kind of a sunburst thing is in there. Go a bit further, some dots and circles and things. If you switch over here to assorted brushes, you get some more options as well. Interesting circles and wavy lines, and there's a snowflake, and there's a star down there. So I have a few of those kind of shapes, but there's no heart in here. Now, as you recall, we were limited to the number of shapes we could use. We only had 15 shapes over there in the guided edit. Let me show you where you can find a ton of shapes. First off, I'm going to put our colors back to black and white. Click on that little icon right there. Let's now open up a new file. I'll go to File, New, Blank File, and set this one at pixels and put it at 100 by 100. I have my resolution at 300. Just a little square, and it's just like that. Now if you don't have floating windows enabled like I have right here, easy to set up. Just go up to Edit, come down to Preferences, and the General button right there. And in here, it says Allow Floating Documents in Expert Mode. Make sure that that is checked. Normally it's kind of off by default, so just make sure that one is checked. Choose OK. You'll now get floating windows. You can dock these, just drag them up here to the top line. They dock in place, or pull it off and it floats. It's just a bit easier to do. Okay, so we have a nice little square image in here. It's just a white background. Now go over here to the shapes. Yours will probably look like this, probably a square like that. Click on that. Go over here to the upper left-hand corner of your shapes, and in here, there's all kinds of different shapes. Every single one of these shapes we can use as a pattern. As you can see, there's just a ton of these things in here. Now yours may look like this. Let's set this back to the default, which is just like that. There's not much here in the default. There's a heart right there. We'll use that. There are just a few things. If you want to see all of your shapes, just click on this little drop down and then choose All Elements Shapes. And there's just a ton of these things. And again, we can use any of these as a pattern using this technique. I'll just scroll down so you can see some of these things, and I'll get down to where that heart is. It's already selected, of course. I just want to show you all these different shapes that you can use. So this really opens up this whole technique, giving you a wide range or wide assortment. Okay, so we have our heart right here. Color is black. And just go over here, upper left-hand corner, and drag down like that, and put a heart shape right in there. It'll come in as black. Now that's fine. Now I want to have this as a paintbrush and not as a picture. You can do that by going up here to the Edit menu and come down to Define Brush. There it is. Just choose OK. We can now get this out of the way. If I now switch over to my paintbrush, You'll see it looks kind of weird here. If we look at our drop down list, at the bottom of the list there is that new heart paintbrush right there. You can kind of see it. There it is. You can kind of see it on the page. Now you want to keep this in black at this point. Our coloration comes from this layer up here. So we have our new layer here. We have this layer. I'm just going to show this layer. Right click where it says layer 2. That's the name of the layer. And do create clipping mask. That puts it kind of indented like that. And now anything I paint in black on this layer is going to show this through. Let's move down to this layer, our empty layer. I'll just click in here someplace and you can see that that patterning from this color layer here comes through into the hearts down below. Okay, let's just do a Control Z and I'll just get rid of those two things. Now I want to get that kind of a scattering effect. So go over here to Brush Settings. There it is. And in here, Hue Jitter is going to shift from your foreground to background color. We don't want that, so leave that at 0. Leave Fade at 0. Scattering, though, is going to give you kind of a randomness. You can see it down here, a little icon gives you a randomness, and then spacing spaces things apart. So you want a little bit of scattering and a little bit of spacing. There we go. I'll put these at like that. There's 21 here and 42% right down there. So there's our settings. Close that. Let's make sure we're on our empty layer here. Then I'll just pull across like that, and there we go. There's our pattern hearts. But we can change the size right there in a little size control. And let's increase our spacing a little bit in here and a little bit more scattering. Just putting some variation in there. And then I'll just come in here with some few small ones like that. And let's go a lot bigger. And I'll just tap in a few scattered larger ones. And a little more. That's way too big. And a few more like that. So there it is. We're recreating that look with a lot more control. Now I can change this picture up here anytime I want to and actually change all of those things. It's something which you can't do over in the guided edit version. You can't change this. Let's say I wanted to shift the colors on this. All you have to do is put in an adjustment layer. Right there, let's do a hue saturation. Where it says use previous layer to create clipping mask, choose that, choose OK. And now if I shift the hue, I can shift the colors of those any way I want. I can make them more saturated, less saturated. I have all those options in there. But most importantly on this, first off, we're keeping our foreground protected. That matches right here. We are able to blur our background. We've already demonstrated that. We have our scattering in here and we have our patterning in the hearts. All that works fine. But we also have that new option which we didn't have over in the guided edit version, and that's that we now have access to all of these different shapes in here. Just tons and tons and tons of shapes. Really taking this technique and opening it way up and giving you all the creative freedom that you really want to have that's kind of lacking over there on that other version. Now once all this is set up, it's real easy to do different things in the background. Let me just show you how fast we can do that. I'm going to close that one down. Let's close that heart down and those, and close that one down right there. We don't need that any longer as well. So those are all hidden. Let's make a new layer above that layer right there. And let's come down here. I have another picture in the photo bin. That's this blue thing here. Let's just take this and drag this in. Close that down. There we go. And get that out of the way. And want that above our clear layer again. There's this new background coloration. Let's come down to this layer. Let's make a new pattern layer for our brush. File, new, blank file. I'll leave it at the 100 by 100. Choose OK. And there it is right there. Let's go for a different pattern. Something which we can't do over with the pattern brush. Let's just find something interesting. Now big things work out better than small things. So a thicker pattern will work out much better than a thinner pattern. Let's just find something interesting in here. And I'll scroll up a little bit. And maybe just use that star right there. No, something totally different. We have stars over there. I want something completely different. Maybe airplanes. That's pretty different. Okay, let's just pull an airplane in here. Comes in as black. There you go. Go back up to image. Come down to define brush. Choose OK. Can hide that. Go back to our paintbrush. There it is. There's our brush pattern. Back to brush settings. And again, you want to bring your scatter up and you want to bring your spacing up. Always. There we are. And make sure you're on our clear layer and then just come in here, just kind of paint like that. And then go up to this layer, right click and create clipping mask. And it puts those colors into the pattern we just did. Let's make these a lot larger. Now let's make sure we're on the clear layer here. And I can then just tap in a few of these things. There we go. So a whole different pattern, which you didn't have before, whole different coloration. We can change these looks anytime you want by doing it this way. We also can, here's kind of a fun thing, you can also overlap multiple patterns. There you go. Something which you can't do over there in the guided edits. Now that we've seen how this whole thing works, let me show you one more refinement. If you recall back on the guided edits, the heart shapes were coming in at different sizes as I painted it in. Let me show you how that is done. I'm just going to hide some of these things in here. Get all that out of the way. Let's make another new file. File, new, blank file. Let's set this one at 500 by 500. Just a bigger size to work with. There we go. And let's now put some hearts back into this one. So back to our shape tool. We're still on hearts. I'll just put one in right like that. It comes in as its own layer. Make sure you're on our new shape layer right here. If you don't see these control handles, just use the Control T keyboard shortcut and you'll see your control handles. And then come in just next to our corner like that. We can pull this over to the side a bit. There we go. Let's make a copy of this one. Right click and duplicate layer. I'll put that over here. I'm going to rotate this one a different direction like that. And scrub our corner, make this a bit smaller. There we go. And I'll just go back to our shape tool and just put in a few more small ones around like this. There we go. So we have some different sized hearts in here. Now as you recall, there was one heart that was just kind of an outline. Let's put in one more right down here. We'll use this as our outline. I'm going to zoom in on this. You can see this just a little bit better. There we go. Now on this one up here on this shape, let's right click where it says shape 8 and simplify layer. There we go. We need to add an outline around this. Go up to layer, come down to layer style, style settings, and where it says stroke, choose stroke. We have our color in here. Let's change it to a different color. It doesn't matter what. I'll change it to a red. And let's make that a bit larger. There we go. Choose OK. Now we need to collapse that shape and that outline. So right click on the name and come down to simplify layer. And you should see that little FX go away. Now grab the magic wand right here. Click inside, hit the delete key, and it leaves you with just that outline. And that's all you need to do. It's going to automatically save as black. Let me just back up a little bit here on our size. You can see everything. Okay, so there's our basic layout. Let's now save this as a brush. Edit, define brush. Notice how that goes into black. Little outline one in red goes into black. Choose OK. We'll hide that one. I'm going to show this layer up here, and let's just put a new layer above that layer, and let's hide that, and right click and release clipping mask. So we now have the kind of a pseudo rose above our clear layer. Let's right click on that rose layer, create clipping mask, and we're now back to this position again. Come down to our new clear layer here. We should have our brush. There it is. Let's double check. There it is, multi-hearts brush. And brush settings, a little bit of scatter, a little bit of spacing. That's good. You can see there it is. And now if I come in here and paint with this, there is that bit with those multi-shaped hearts. And we even have the outline heart showing up right down here. There's some over here as well. And that really mimics what you're getting up there on that guided edit. It's a little bit more work to do that new kind of fancier brush. Let's bring that back up again here. But actually not that hard to do once you just understand the system. Aside from that, everything else works exactly the same. So there you go. That's how you can do this guided edit trick, but with a lot more flexibility. Let's just bring our airplanes back in again here while I'm at it. There we go. Airplanes and our new hearts as well. Now I like the original guided edit tool. It's a lot of fun. It's very fast and it's very easy, but for me it's just a little bit limited. And I think we solve all of that here by doing this same idea, but doing it over here in the expert mode. And if you want to learn a lot more about how to use Adobe's Photoshop Elements program, including the new Photoshop Elements 2020, take a look at my complete training course. A couple of links right down there in the description. The top one is for the brand new Photoshop Elements 2020 training, and the link below that takes you to a page that has links for all of the other versions of Photoshop Elements as well. It's really the best way to learn how to use this pretty fun and actually powerful graphics program. Also, don't forget to hit that like button and of course the share and the subscribe. I do pay attention to those likes. The videos that have more likes, I'll tend to do more videos on those topics. So if you really enjoy a video, make sure you hit that like button if you want to see more videos similar to that. Okay, there you go. That's my new take on the pattern brush trick.